The arrival of the Virak. The Virak were not just conquerors, they were exterminators. For millennia, they had swept across the galaxy, leaving nothing but ash and silence in their wake. Their ships, sleek and black as the void itself, were designed to inspire terror before they even fired a shot. Their technology was unmatched, their armies relentless, and their hunger for domination insatiable. No species had ever stood against them and lived to tell the tale. When the Virak arrived at the edge of the Sol system, humanity was unprepared. The first warning came from the Deep Space Observatory on Pluto. Dr. Elena Marquez, the lead scientist, was the one who spotted the anomaly. At first, it was just a blip on the radar, a faint distortion in the fabric of space. But as the hours passed, the blip grew larger, and the distortion became impossible to ignore. "Captain Drake, you need to see this," Elena said, her voice tense as she stared at the holographic display. Captain Marcus Drake, a veteran of the United Earth Defense Force, stepped into the observatory. His sharp eyes scanned the data, and his jaw tightened. "That's not a comet," he said. "That's a fleet." The Virak ships emerged from the darkness like predators stalking their prey. They moved with a precision that was almost beautiful, their formations flawless, their intent clear. The human colonies on Europa and Titan were the first to fall. The Virak didn't bother with negotiations or threats. They simply attacked, their weapons reducing entire cities to rubble in moments. Elena watched in horror as the feeds from the colonies went dark one by one. "We have to do something," she whispered. Marcus clenched his fists. "We will. But we need time. Time to prepare, time to fight back." The Virak, however, were not known for their patience. Their next target was the mining colony on Ceres, a vital hub for humanity's resources. The colony's defenses were no match for the Virak's advanced weaponry. Within hours, Ceres was lost, its population either dead or enslaved. But amidst the chaos, a spark of hope emerged. During the attack on Ceres, a group of survivors managed to capture a damaged Virak drone. The drone was brought to Elena, who immediately began analyzing its systems. What she discovered would change everything. The Virak rely on a centralized network to control their drones, Elena explained to Marcus. "If we can disrupt that network, we can cripple their forces." Marcus nodded, a grim determination in his eyes. "Then that's what we'll do. We'll hit them where it hurts." The first act of defiance came from an unlikely source. A small group of engineers on Ceres, led by a young woman named Aisha Patel, managed to jury-rig a signal jammer using parts from the captured drone. When the Virak launched their next attack, the jammer was activated, and for the first time, the invaders hesitated. The Virak drones faltered, their movements becoming erratic. The human defenders seized the opportunity, launching a counterattack that forced the Virak to retreat. It was a small victory, but it was enough to prove that the Virak were not invincible. As the news spread, humanity began to rally. Across the solar system, people came together, determined to fight back. Elena and Marcus knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they also knew that humanity had something the Virak could never understand, the will to survive. The war had begun, and humanity would not go quietly into the night. The fall of Earth's colonies. The Virak's assault on the Sol system was relentless. After their initial attack on the outer colonies, they turned their attention inward, targeting humanity's most vital outposts. The colonies on Europa, Titan, and Ceres had already fallen, their populations either wiped out or enslaved. Now, the Virak set their sights on Mars, the heart of humanity's interplanetary infrastructure. Mars was more than just a colony, it was a symbol of human ingenuity and resilience. Its sprawling cities, built beneath massive domes, were home to millions. Its terraforming projects had turned the red planet into a second home for humanity. But now, those cities were under threat. Dr. Elena Marquez and Captain Marcus Drake watched from Earth as the Virak fleet descended upon Mars. The feeds from the Martian defense network showed the invaders' ships blotting out the sun, their weapons glowing with a menacing energy. "We can't let them take Mars," Elena said, her voice trembling with urgency. "If they control the planet, they'll have a foothold in the inner system." Marcus nodded, his expression grim. "We'll do everything we can. But we're spread thin. The colonies on the outer rim are gone, and our forces are barely holding together." On Mars, the situation was dire. The Martian Defense Force, led by Commander Li Wei, had been preparing for an attack, but nothing could have prepared them for the sheer scale of the Viric assault. The invaders' ships unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, targeting the domes that protected the cities. "Shields at 40%, shouted one of the officers in the command center. "We can't sustain this level of bombardment." Commander Li clenched his fists. "Activate the rail guns. Target their lead ship. We need to buy time for the evacuation." The Martian rail guns, massive electromagnetic cannons mounted on the planet's surface, roared to life. Their projectiles streaked through the atmosphere, slamming into the Viric fleet with devastating force. One of the lead ships exploded in a fiery burst, but the Viric were undeterred. "They're adapting," Li muttered as he watched the enemy ships shift their formations. "They're targeting the rail guns." The Viric's precision was terrifying. Their weapons locked onto the rail gun installations, reducing them to molten slag within minutes. Without the rail guns, Mars's defenses were crippled. In the city of New Beijing, chaos reigned. The dome above the city cracked under the relentless bombardment, and the air began to leak out. Panicked civilians rushed to the underground shelters, but there wasn't enough space for everyone. Aisha Patel, the young engineer who had helped create the signal jammer on Ceres, was among those trapped in the city. She had been evacuated to Mars after the fall of Ceres, but now she found herself in another nightmare. "We need to get to the transport ships," shouted a soldier, guiding a group of civilians through the crumbling streets. Aisha hesitated. She knew the transport ships wouldn't be enough to save everyone. She looked around, her mind racing. There had to be another way. "The old mining tunnels," she said suddenly. "They lead to the surface. If we can get to them, we might be able to escape." The soldier shook his head. "The tunnels are unstable. It's too dangerous." "Staying here is more dangerous," Aisha shot back. "We don't have a choice." Reluctantly, the soldier agreed. Aisha led the group through the city, using her knowledge of the infrastructure to navigate the chaos. They reached the entrance to the mining tunnels just as the dome above them shattered completely. "Go!" Aisha shouted, pushing the others into the tunnels. She stayed behind long enough to activate a portable signal jammer, hoping it would buy them some time. Above ground, the Viric began their ground assault. Their warriors, clad in sleek black armor, descended upon the city like a swarm of locusts. The Martian defense force fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Commander Li watched from the command center as the Viric overran the city. "Fall back to the secondary defenses," he ordered. "We need to hold them off as long as possible." But it was too late. The Viric breached the command center, their weapons cutting through the defenders with ease. Li fought to the last, his final act of defiance a desperate attempt to destroy the center's data banks. As the Viric secured their victory on Mars, Aisha and the others emerged from the mining tunnels on the planet's surface. They were met with a sight that filled them with both hope and despair. In the distance, a fleet of human ships was approaching. They were battered and outnumbered, but they were coming. "It's the Earth Defense Fleet," Aisha whispered. "They're here." The fleet, led by Captain Marcus Drake, launched a daring counterattack. Their ships engaged the Viric in a fierce battle, buying time for the survivors to escape. On Earth, Elena watched the battle unfold with a mixture of relief and dread. "We've lost Mars," she said quietly. "But we're not out of this yet." Marcus's voice crackled over the comms. "We've got survivors, but we can't hold the Virak off forever. We need a new plan. Elena nodded, her mind already racing. We'll find one. We have to. The fall of Mars was a devastating blow, but it also marked a turning point. Humanity had faced the Virak and survived, if only just. And in the ashes of their defeat, they found the resolve to fight back. The war was far from over. The battle for Mars. The fall of Mars was a crushing blow, but humanity refused to surrender. The remnants of the Martian Defense Force, along with survivors like Aisha Patel, regrouped in the underground tunnels and hidden bunkers scattered across the planet. Above them, the Virak established their dominance, their black ships patrolling the skies and their warriors scouring the surface for any signs of resistance. But Mars was not yet lost. Deep beneath the surface, in a hidden command center, Aisha and a small group of engineers and soldiers worked tirelessly to devise a plan. They had salvaged what they could from the wreckage of the Martian defenses, including a few damaged Virak drones. Aisha's mind raced as she studied the alien technology, searching for a weakness. We can't fight them head-on, she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. But if we can disrupt their control network, we might be able to turn their own weapons against them. The others nodded, their faces grim but determined. They had all lost friends and family in the attack, and they were ready to do whatever it took to strike back. Meanwhile, in orbit, Captain Marcus Drake and the Earth Defense Fleet prepared for a daring rescue mission. Their ships were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had one advantage, the element of surprise. "We'll hit them hard and fast," Marcus said, addressing his crew over the comms. "Our priority is to evacuate as many survivors as possible. But if we get a chance to take out a few of their ships, we're taking it." The fleet launched their attack under the cover of a solar flare, their ships emerging from the sun's glare like phantoms. The Virak, caught off guard, scrambled to respond. On the surface, Aisha and her team activated their makeshift signal jammer, targeting the Virak drones patrolling the area. The drones faltered, their movements becoming erratic. "It's working," shouted one of the engineers. "We've got control." Aisha grinned. "Now let's see how they like a taste of their own medicine." The drones turned on their former masters, their weapons firing at the Virak warriors. The invaders, unprepared for this turn of events, were thrown into disarray. In the chaos, Marcus and his fleet descended upon the surface, their ships landing in the shadow of Olympus Mons, the tallest volcano on Mars. The survivors emerged from their hiding places, their faces filled with relief as they boarded the rescue ships. But the Virak were not so easily defeated. Their command ship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons, entered the fray. Its plasma cannons tore through the human ships, forcing Marcus to order a retreat. "We can't hold them off much longer," shouted one of the pilots. "We need to get out of here." Marcus clenched his fists. "Not yet. We're not leaving anyone behind." Aisha and her team fought their way to the extraction point, their makeshift weapons and stolen drones giving them an edge against the Virak. But as they reached the landing zone, they were met with a horrifying sight. The Virak command ship had unleashed a new weapon, a swarm of hunter-killer drones, faster and deadlier than anything they had faced before. The drones descended upon the human forces, their weapons cutting through armor and flesh with terrifying efficiency. Aisha watched in horror as the rescue ships were torn apart. "We're not going to make it," she whispered. But then, a new voice crackled over the comms. "This is Commander Li Wei. I'm still alive, and I've got a plan." Li had survived the fall of the command center, and he had been working in secret to sabotage the Virak's operations. Using a stolen access code, he infiltrated the Virak command ship systems, disabling its weapons and shields. "Now's your chance," Li shouted. "Take it down." Marcus didn't hesitate. He ordered his ships to focus their fire on the command ship, their weapons pounding its hull. The Virak vessel shuddered under the assault, its systems failing one by one. With a final, deafening explosion, the command ship was destroyed. The Viric forces, now leaderless, began to retreat. The battle for Mars was over, but the war was far from won. The counterattack. The destruction of the Viric command ship was a turning point, but humanity knew the war was far from over. The Viric had been driven back, but their empire spanned countless star systems, and their resources were vast. If humanity was to survive, they needed to take the fight to the enemy. On Earth, Dr. Elena Marquez and Captain Marcus Drake convened with the United Earth Defense Council. The mood in the room was tense, but there was a glimmer of hope. "We've bought ourselves some time," Marcus said, addressing the council. "But we can't wait for the Viric to regroup. We need to strike back." Elena nodded. "We've analyzed the data from the battle on Mars. The Viric rely heavily on their centralized control network. If we can disrupt it, we can cripple their entire operation." The council was skeptical. "And how do you propose we do that?" asked one of the members. Elena projected a holographic map of the galaxy, highlighting a distant star system. "The Viric central hub is here, in the Zeta 9 system. If we can infiltrate it and destroy their command center, we can sever their control over their forces." The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. But humanity had no other choice. The mission was codenamed Operation Phoenix. A small, elite team would be sent to the Zeta 9 system, tasked with infiltrating the Viric command center and planting a series of EMP devices designed to disrupt their network. Leading the team was Lieutenant Caravas, a seasoned special operations officer with a reputation for getting the job done no matter the odds. Her team included Aisha Patel, whose expertise with Viric technology was invaluable, and Sergeant Elias Grant, a combat specialist with a knack for surviving impossible situations. The journey to Zeta 9 was fraught with danger. The team's ship, the Starfire, was equipped with advanced stealth technology, but even that wasn't enough to completely evade the Viric sensors. "We're approaching the system," Kara said, her eyes fixed on the navigation console. "Stay sharp. We don't know what we're walking into." The Zeta 9 system was a fortress. Viric warships patrolled the perimeter, their weapons scanning for any sign of intrusion. The Starfire slipped past them, its engines running silent as it approached the command center. The command center was a massive structure, its black hull bristling with weapons and sensors. It was surrounded by a fleet of drones, their red eyes scanning for threats. "This is it," Aisha whispered. "The heart of the Viric's control network." The team donned their infiltration suits, designed to mask their presence from the Viric sensors. They moved swiftly and silently, using the shadows to their advantage. Inside the command center, the air was thick with tension. The Viric were on high alert, their warriors patrolling the corridors with weapons at the ready. Kara led the team through the maze of corridors, her movements precise and deliberate. They reached the central control room without incident, but their luck was about to run out. "We've got company," Elias muttered, his hand tightening on his weapon. A squad of Viric warriors appeared at the end of the corridor, their weapons raised. The team opened fire, their weapons punching through the invaders' armor. "Aisha, get to the control panel," Kara shouted. "We'll hold them off." Aisha darted to the control panel, her fingers flying over the interface. She uploaded the EMP program, but the system resisted. "They've got a firewall," she said, her voice tense. "I need more time." Kara and Elias fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered. The Viric warriors closed in, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Just as it seemed the mission would fail, a new voice crackled over the comms. "This is Commander Li Wei. I'm still alive, and I'm in the system." Li had managed to infiltrate the Viric network from Mars, using the access codes he had stolen during the battle. He bypassed the firewall, allowing Aisha to activate the EMP devices. The command center was engulfed in a blinding light as the EMP devices detonated, their energy pulse rippling through the Viric network. The drones outside went dark, their red eyes flickering out. The warships in the system lost power, their weapons falling silent. The team made their escape, their ship racing away from the crippled command center. Behind them, the Viric fleet was in disarray, their control network severed. The last stand. The success of Operation Phoenix was a beacon of hope for humanity, but it came at a cost. The Viric, though temporarily crippled, were far from defeated. Their empire was vast, and their resolve unshaken. They would regroup, adapt, and strike back with even greater ferocity. Humanity knew that the final battle would be fought on Earth, the last bastion of their civilization. On Earth, the mood was a mixture of determination and dread. The planet's defenses had been bolstered with every available resource, but the sheer scale of the Viric's impending assault was overwhelming. Dr. Elena Marquez and Captain Marcus Drake worked tirelessly to prepare for the inevitable. "We've bought ourselves some time," Elena said, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "But we need to be ready for their next move." Marcus nodded. "We've fortified the major cities and deployed the orbital defense grid. But if they hit us with everything they've got, it might not be enough." The Viric's retaliation was swift and brutal. Their fleet, larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever faced, emerged from hyperspace on the edge of the Sol system. Their ships blotted out the stars, their weapons glowing with a menacing energy. The battle for Earth had begun. The first wave of Viric ships targeted the orbital defense grid, their weapons tearing through the satellites and platforms with terrifying precision. The human fleet, led by Marcus, engaged the invaders in a desperate attempt to hold them off. "Focus fire on their lead ships," Marcus shouted over the comms. "We need to break their formation." The human ships fought valiantly, their weapons lighting up the void with bursts of energy. But the Viric were relentless. Their ships advanced, their weapons cutting through the human defenses like a knife through butter. On the surface, Elena coordinated the planetary defenses from the United Earth Command Center. The cities were shielded by massive energy domes, but they wouldn't hold forever. "We need to buy more time," Elena said, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Activate the ground-based rail guns and missile silos. Target their landing craft." The ground defenses roared to life, their projectiles streaking through the atmosphere and slamming into the Viric ships. But for every ship that was destroyed, 10 more took its place. In the skies above New York, Lieutenant Caravas and her team fought to protect the city. Their fighter jets weaved through the chaos, their weapons firing at the Viric landing craft. "We can't let them reach the surface," Kara shouted. "Push them back." But the Viric were too many. Their landing craft breached the atmosphere, disgorging waves of warriors onto the streets below. The human defenders fought with everything they had, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. In the command center, Elena watched in horror as the Viric overran the cities. "We're losing ground," she said, her voice trembling. "We need a miracle." That miracle came in the form of Aisha Patel. The young engineer had been working on a secret project, one that could turn the tide of the battle. "I've modified the EMP devices," Aisha said, her voice filled with urgency. "If we can deploy them on a large scale, we can disable the Viric's entire fleet." Elena's eyes widened. "Do it. We've got nothing left to lose." Aisha and her team launched the modified EMP devices into orbit, their energy pulses rippling through the Viric fleet. The invaders' ships went dark, their weapons falling silent. But the victory was short-lived. The Viric command ship, a massive vessel that had remained hidden until now, entered the fray. Its weapons tore through the human defenses, its shields impervious to the EMP. "We need to take that ship down," Marcus said, his voice filled with determination. "It's the only way to end this." Kara and her team volunteered for the mission. They boarded a stealth shuttle and made their way to the command ship, their hearts pounding with fear and resolve. Inside the command ship, they fought their way to the central control room. The Viric warriors were relentless, but Kara and her team were driven by a desperate need to protect their home. "Aisha, get to the control panel," Kara shouted. "We'll hold them off." Aisha worked frantically, her fingers flying over the interface. She uploaded a virus designed to overload the ship's systems, but the Virec's defenses were formidable. "I need more time," Aisha shouted. Kara and her team fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered. Just as it seemed the mission would fail, Marcus's voice crackled over the comms. "We're coming in hot," he said. "Get ready to move." The human fleet, battered but unbroken, launched a final assault on the command ship. Their weapons pounded its hull, their determination unwavering. With a final, deafening explosion, the command ship was destroyed. The Virek fleet, now leaderless, began to retreat. The battle for Earth was over, but the cost had been immense. Cities lay in ruins, and countless lives had been lost. But humanity had survived. As the sun rose over the battered planet, Elena, Marcus, Kara, and Aisha stood together, their faces filled with a mixture of sorrow and hope. "We've won," Marcus said quietly. "But the war is